You know, some folks volunteer in public service for one reason or another. It really has to be understood that Fred volunteered his whole energy and life his last years because he truly loved the mountains and he wanted other people to be able to enjoy them. And that was the sole motivation for all his years of work on the hut system.
There aren't many Aspenites who have a high mountain hut named after them. But when you know that the late Alfred A. Braun has a whole system of 6 huts south and east of Aspen honoring his accomplishments, you can understand something of the nature of the man and of the esteem with which the community regards his public service. A short story gives an indication of what kind of man he was. Fred arrived in Aspen in 1951. He and his wife, Renata, were running the Holiday House Ski Lodge in August of 1956 when word came that a well-known local mountain climber had been hurt while scaling the north face of the Maroon Bells. Fred joined a volunteer rescue party which trudged through the snow to reach the site, spent the night with him, and then carried the injured man down the Buckskin Pass Trail and brought him to the Pitkin County Hospital. 13 days later, that man was married as planned, with casts on his broken arm and leg, and with considerable gratitude to Fred and the other rescuers. Perhaps it was this experience that gave Fred the idea to form Mountain Rescue Aspen. Recognized as one of the best organized, trained, and equipped volunteer rescue groups in the country, it has assisted hundreds of backcountry travelers and answered more than a few false alarms over the years. It has been said by a number of accident victims that if you have to be hurt in the mountains, Aspen is a good place to get into trouble. Born in 1905, Fred hiked and skied in the mountains of his native Germany, as well as Czechoslovakia and Poland, and served as a ski trooper in the Czech Army. Trained as an engineer, he worked in shipyards in Germany and toured the South Seas as a ship's engineer in the Merchant Marines and on passenger vessels. In 1928, he immigrated to the United States and eventually set up an engineering business in Chicago. But the mountains were in his blood, and the new ski resort of Aspen beckoned. Stubbornly non-political, Fred is remembered during his term as an Aspen City Councilman as an advocate for positive community action without a lot of blather. Later, his direct talk, which often endeared him as an old curmudgeon, was responsible for the formation of Aspen's first volunteer ambulance service, as well as the Aspen chapter of the Colorado Mountain Club. For cross-country skiers, Fred is remembered for adding 3 high country huts to the 3 that inaugurated the system, and most importantly, for maintaining and directing the whole operation. Stuart Mace remembers.
When we had to give up managing the huts after building the Markley and the Lindley huts, Fred was retiring from his little business in town and took over this whole big job and added to it with the Marsh Barnard hut, the building of that, and the Goodwin Green, and finally the Wilson, which gave him a really vast area to take care of, which he did ultimately well and with his entire energies. You know, it's a worn-out statement, but behind every great man, there's a great woman. And although Renata never got into the mountains with Fred, she backed him all the way. And besides that, she was a great public servant, helping the Aspen Library get going and helping maintain it, giving her full energies as Fred did to the huts, even though she did not get out on the trail with Fred.
Fred was also honored by the Forest Service for his conservation efforts, by the U.S. Ski Association for long and fruitful service, by the Aspen City Council, which declared a Fred Braun Day, by the Aspen Chamber of Commerce as being an outstanding citizen, and Fred was a recipient of the first Greg Mace Award for community service. Fred, who died in March of 1989, retired as the leader of Mountain Rescue in 1980. But his legacy lives on. He was a true alpinist, a lover of the mountains, who believed that we should always help others who are in trouble in the backcountry. Although mountain rescue has become more structured and mechanized over the years, Fred's philosophy is still the guiding force. Mountain rescue members are prepared to leave their families and jobs at any hour to continue Fred's work.
You know, he was a crusty old buzzard, but his love for the mountains was the thing that guided each decision that he made, and drove him on to work until, you know, he could not do it anymore. A tremendous amount of will that Fred had.